Hello, everyone, and welcome to Future Nonprofit, a podcast and YouTube channel where we sit down with industry experts, both in and out of the nonprofit space, to talk about how to build and scale the nonprofits our world needs tomorrow. I'm your host, Ted Vaughn, the co-author of Culture Built My Brand and the co-founder of Historic Agency. If you have not yet checked out the audio version of Future Nonprofit, it is a highly produced, amazing 20 to 30-minute journey through each of our guests' stories. Be sure and check that out. Like and follow us wherever you get your podcasts or here on YouTube. And I hope you really enjoyed today's episode. We talked to some amazing people. If you had to describe in like one short sentence what you do to a 5-year-old for a living, what would your answer be?
Yeah, the company that I've been running over the last 11 years is Sackcloth Ashes. And for every blanket we sell, we donate a blanket to your local homeless shelter. And as of recent, I just launched my new company called LOCL, LOCL, and it's a local social network that connects you with people nearby and helps you get plugged into communities in your city.
Are you a music guy? Is music a part of your life?
I enjoy listening to music.
Yeah. If you were walking out onto a platform to speak and you had to have walk-on music, what would the song be? What would the tune be that you would want to accompany you onto the platform?
Damn, I don't know. That's a hard question. I wasn't pressed for that one, but I've been listening to a lot of Bon Iver lately.
Oh, cool. I love Bon Iver.
I don't know if that's like a pump-up song, but it's like, I don't know, that his latest album that he just released is like one of the best albums I've actually listened entirely through and was like, this is a masterpiece.
Yeah, I love it. First question, what do you want to be when you were a kid? You know, what's your earliest memory of I wanted to be a stuntman. What was your earliest memory of what you wanted to be when you were an adult?
Yeah, when I was a kid, my mom and I lived with my grandma and uncle, and my grandma bought me Lincoln Logs, and I would spend all day long building entire structures in the living room with these Lincoln Logs. And my uncle would always come home and he'd be like, you know what Bobby's going to be one day? He's going to be an architect. And it's powerful when somebody speaks something over you like that. And, so from that point on, I always thought like, I'm going to be an architect. I really loved building things and crafting things, designing things, all the way down to, photos of me building these Lincoln log houses and cities and stuff. And so fast forward to sophomore year in high school, I still at that point was convinced I'm going to be an architect. And I absolutely hated algebra. And so I was like, that was like the breaking point for me where I'm like, I don't think I'm going to be an architect anymore. And I pivoted away from it. And fast forward like deep into my career and building my company, I had a mentor share with me like 2 years ago. And he was like, you know what you are? You're a social architect. And I was like, no way. That's crazy because that's what I always thought I would be, is an architect. And so it's kind of in a weird mystical way has come full circle to where I'm still an architect, but it's not the type of architect that I thought I would be. I'm a social architect. And wanting to use my design skills and my building skills to construct digital platforms to help people be connected within their city.
I find that people who do great things often have one of two career journeys. It's either a very linear, I wanted to be a lawyer, and then I did this, 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 and then that led to this nonprofit. Or it's very nonlinear, and it's almost like they just are tripping and stumbling their way forward. Doesn't mean it was a mess. It just means it took a whole bunch of unpredictable turns and curves, and couldn't have written it. Is that your pathway? I'm guessing that's more your pathway. Or do you feel like it's been more linear?
I've always had a deep sense of purpose and desire to make a difference. But as far as the story, I've always wanted to live a story where I don't even know what's going to happen next. I even had that in my Instagram bio for a while. It's like, I want to live a story that I don't even know what's going to happen. And that's been very true in my journey. I've always had a deep anchor to what my purpose is, and have really honed in on my different skill sets and ways that I can personally contribute to whatever project that I'm working on. But when it comes to my story, it's definitely felt like a movie, to say the least, where you don't really know what's going to happen next in my story. And, part of that's amazing. And then part of that gets exhausting, and something that my wife probably doesn't like as much. The unpredictability of my life is pretty wild.
My guess is that you're someone well acquainted with unpredictability. Let's kind of go back to your origin story. Talk a little bit about the experience of living with your mom at your grandma's, and just some of the like I find in every child, like your Lincoln Log story, there's often aspects of somebody's origin story that tether directly to what they're doing today. And that's clearly the case with you, because it's very obvious in your brand. But just go a little deeper. What was it like living in that space? What were some of the joys and some of the challenges? Was it more chaotic than orderly? Just bring us into kind of the Bob as a child.
Yeah, so we lived with my grandma until I was about 5 or 6, and then my mom moved us up to Oregon because she felt like it would be a safer place to raise me as a single mom. And California at the time where we were living, there was a lot of gangs, and she knew because she grew up there and in the area that we were in. And so she moved us up to Coos Bay, Oregon, a little fisherman logging town. My mom went to community college there, and so she was familiar with the area. Moved us up there, and she spent a lot of time waitressing and managing restaurants to pay the bills. So I spent a lot of my childhood, in my early years at a daycare. And then after I got to an age where I can be by myself, I was by myself a lot. And so I'd walk to school, I'd walk everywhere, I'd walk to my friends' houses, and I'd have a lot of time to think. And so those were the streets that really developed me as a thinker. And I got a lot of time to be by myself and learn how to be comfortable by myself, and in my own mind. And so, much of my childhood was, spent by myself, and not in like a lonely, depressing way, but just in a way of, I was a kid trying to survive out and had to figure out how to be okay with being by myself a lot at the time. And that's where I developed a lot of mental strength over those years.
Talk a little bit about the journey into adolescence and just school and college. What was that kind of career journey like as you were moving towards adulthood?
Yeah. So I always in school, I came from a poor area in my community. The area was called Empire, and it was nicknamed Methpire because of how much, drug infestation there was in that community. And I always had this skill set to be able to build good relationships with other kids. And so I kind of worked my way into the popular groups of kids that are kids that came from wealthy families and were kids that played sports. And, and when I was in high school, I started partying with them and just kind of found my way into those circles to where I was being perceived and respected as one of those kids, but I wasn't one of those kids. I came from literally nothing. And so, I always kind of had this knack of finding my way into friend groups, whether that was through humor or whether that was through relatability and just, being a good, kind person. Just kind of found my way into different friend groups that I really connected with, and really grateful for those friend groups. Your friend group kind of makes your entire experience when you're in junior high and high school. And I had a really great friend group, growing up. And so was around a lot of kids that, perceivingly were different than me, but I was able to connect with them on a really personal level. And when I was in my junior or senior year in high school, I started going to an organization called Young Life. And it's a Christian organization that group of leaders go and spend time with kids and, you go to Young Life Club every week where there's music and games and mixers, and then they share a little scripture at the end. And those Young Life years were really formative for me because it was the first time that I had like a leader come into my life and be like, you are a leader, and gave me my first opportunity to speak in front of my peer group and craft a message. And so those were like really formative years as a young man because I got some really amazing opportunities to learn how to kind of be in this larger community of people and communicate with them, and learn how to lead. And so I had amazing examples of leaders in my life at that time. And then when I was 19, instead of going to college, I moved up to Central Oregon, to the Willamette Valley, and there was no Young Life in the area that I was living in. So I'm like, I'm going to start Young Life. So that was kind of my first entrepreneurial experiences. I got to build a team of leaders, form a committee, call people on a mission bigger than themselves. And I got to see a whole community really transform, from the teachers to the business leaders in the community to the kids. And I got to experience like hundreds of people kind of coming together around a singular vision. And I did that when I was, 19 through 23. And so that was kind of my first entrepreneurial experience of like having absolutely nothing and then moving forward in a vision and trusting that things will work out. And I got to build something, be a part of building something really amazing for a community of people. So by the time that I launched my first company, Sackcloth Ashes, as crazy as it seemed to like buy a blanket or buy a roll of fabric from Joann's Fabric and a sewing machine and kind of get that thing off the ground, as crazy as that looked, that had been familiar to me. I had already experienced this feeling of starting something out of nothing and, moving forward and working through the obstacles and the challenges as I went, until it happened. And so Young Life was those like formative years as a young man. And then it gave me my first entrepreneurial experience when I was in my early 20s.
So you're clearly an entrepreneur. You probably would hate to go into being an employee of somebody else's vision, right? You're a dreamer, you're a starter, you're a builder. What aspect of that is most energizing to you? I get the trade-off that can come with the unpredictability, but what part of it drives you? Is it the dust up? Is it the creation? Is it building something? Is it like where do you get the most fulfillment and joy from being an entrepreneur, a starter?
Yeah, historically, the thing that I get the most joy around and what I'm naturally, I would say, best at is team building. Like I can rally people around a shared vision. And I love the challenge of like having a bunch of humans that are all different, wired different, different gifts, and be able to bring them and curate like a really good team of people that are in a particular role and are contributing to a particular vision and making that vision happen. And I don't know, where that came from. Maybe it's just doing it a lot, but I always tell investors now that I'm talking with that, my number one skill set is team building. I can build a really good team and I can recruit anybody around a shared vision. And because I can find what matters to those people and find a role for them. And then as of late, I would say design. I love designing. I could literally, it's like my happy place. I could spend all day designing. Right now it's, I'm moving into technology. And so I spend a lot of time designing, and working with my designer on solving the puzzle of crafting a technology that is used by a lot of people. And I just love it. I love good design. I like the challenge of taking something that is really complex and simplifying it down to its least common denominator so that everyone can understand how to use it. And so it's probably a similar vein to team building, where it's kind of like you're taking this large, complex vision and you're simplifying it down to kind of rally a group of people around it. With technology, I like the challenge of using my design skill set to take complex functionalities and vision in that regard and bring it together into this beautiful, well-designed product that people can easily use and it's beneficial for their lives. So I love design.
Design and business and entrepreneurialism are all components and aspects of often unbelievably motivated nonprofit leaders who are in this different game that it seems like you are in. And yet you're incredibly purpose-driven, want to make a difference, contribute to making the world better, increasing human dignity, all the words. Why did you go the direction of building businesses and not just becoming a nonprofit leader or starter of a nonprofit?
Yeah, I always thought I was going to be a nonprofit leader for, in the Young Life days. I was like, that was my destiny, was I was either going to start a nonprofit or become a pastor and start a church. And I got into business because at the time, Tom's Shoes had started their company. Blake started Tom's. And for every pair of shoes that he sold, they would donate a pair of shoes, and they were for profit. And they were able to really scale and turn it into a business model that was sustainable. And I really, during, that 2014 time period, there was a lot of companies that were starting up that were doing good. And that really attracted me. And I think, that group of people during that time really pioneered a door for people like me who was like, traditionally, well, I'm just going to end up in the nonprofit world because business doesn't make any sense at all for the type of impact that I want to make. And there was enough companies during that time that started to make an impact. And it intrigued me to kind of get involved in more of the business side of things than just the nonprofit space. And I, being involved with Young Life from 19 to 24 years old, I just had gotten tired of fundraising. And if I could find a way to make my mission more sustainable through product, and make a difference, and I wouldn't have to fundraise all the time, just to keep things going, then that was kind of the route that I would ideally wanted to go.
Having built these amazing brands, to what extent does business, profit, to what extent does that motivate you or drive you, or is that something that maybe has kind of been unlocked in you that you didn't know was there during the Young Life days, or perhaps you did, and how much of your leadership is around that idea of building something that's profitable, that works, that from a business standpoint kicks off cash?
Yeah, it took me a decade to start taking that more serious, to be honest. Because I've never been motivated by it. When you look at starting a business or you're doing anything, you have profit, you have product, and you have people. And the way that you hierarchy those, it matters greatly to the unveiling what are your values, In a lot of companies, profit's at the top. And then it comes product, and then people fall to the wayside, and you start having a lot of these companies making decisions based off of corporate interests rather than the interests of the people. And that's why we've ended up with a lot of, manipulative technology and products that have gotten people to become addicted to the product rather than for it to be useful for humanity. We've ended up with a lot of corrupt corporations that are taking advantage of society rather than creating something useful. And the unveiling of that is because they value profit more than they value people and the product itself. And so, for me, I'm trying to find a better balance, because I've replaced the word money in my vocabulary with the word resource. And I just see money as resource. The more money that you have, the more resources that you have to be able to do what you want to do. And so, over time, profit has become more important to me, and something that, I'm actively working towards, I would say more intentionally, just because it does open up more doors for me to do what I want, and I want to do a lot of things.
I want to talk about what those things are, but before I do, I want to go back to kind of origin story. Your mom's played, like she would in anybody's life, your mom's played an important role, but there's been, it seems like, a unique role. What's the greatest contribution that your mom's made to you as a human and to your leadership today?
Yeah, I've always said my mom's the hardest working woman that I know. And she really instilled in me this, both indirectly and directly, this visual of somebody that is willing to step up and serve people at any time. And to give you kind of an analogy of that, I picked my mom up at the airport. This is like years and years ago. And we walk out of the front doors of the airport, and this guy like dropped his keys and they rolled under his car. And you could tell he was kind of down there struggling to try to get them. And my mom just like dropped all of her stuff and dove under the car to get his keys for him. And my mom has always had this like true compassionate heart to help people that need help and support. And it's just like built into her. And, she's unashamed about it. I think that's the powerful thing about it. Some people are, they see somebody struggling, or an elderly person or a homeless person or whatever. And you have to kind of get past this like layer of personal, like, what will people think of me if I dive under this car, and kind of like get to that lowly place of getting your knees dirty to help someone out, and what feels like almost embarrassment. And my mom has this like unashamed ability to just serve people at any time without even second guessing it. And it's a beautiful trait that I'm always going to take with me. Of when on Thanksgiving one year, there was nobody on the streets because everybody was in their homes with their families and stuff. And my mom and I had to run out and grab something. And there was like a person digging through a trash can at a gas station. And we like drove by them, and my mom's like, pull over. And so we pulled over, and she ran into the gas station and bought that person a bunch of stuff. And, it's like, it's not even a second thought. Like, it's just boom, it's automatic for her. And I've really taken that to heart. It's, and want it to be more of like a practice in my life, of something that I'm quick to act to serve people.
So you talked a little bit about the future. I like to think in terms of like 3 year, because 3 years is far enough out to do something significant, but close enough to require some hustle, What does the 3 year future look like for Bob Dalton? More brands, or like what's different in 3 years?
Yeah, I think as I'm turning a corner in my life in a pretty major way, as I'm getting into launching local and getting it off the ground, I think that the decisions and technology that we make in the next 2 years are going to shape generations to come. That's the only reason why I got into tech. Because I have to throw my name in the hat, and I can't be a bystander to watch, the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world making decisions on behalf of corporations and completely manipulating the public to profit off of them. And we need more options for communication platforms that are actually like making decisions for the benefit and the future of society. So that's why I'm getting involved in tech. And so for the next like 3 years, I'm going to have my head down building a communication platform that is going to exist for the future of society, to where people can easily connect with those nearby to them through digital communities and in their local areas. And I think that if we don't have at least one communication platform that's not owned and operated by an AI company, we're in serious for the spread of misinformation and manipulation that's going to happen to a lot of people. And so, as of now, you have X, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, YouTube, and LinkedIn are all owned and operated by AI companies. And that's a dangerous thing because not only are these companies not incentivized to let us know what's real and what's fake, they're incentivizing people to create artificial content. And so what you're going to see over the next 2 years is people moving away from, and we already are, people moving away from these traditional social media platforms, and they're going to start moving communication into digital communities. The future of online communication will be through digital communities. People that you know are real and people that you trust, where you're getting your information from. And so I'm pushing all my chips forward on that. Like, I really believe that the future of online communication is going to be done through digital communities. And that will be practical, like a really practical issue that we're solving over the next 2 years. But within the next 3 to 5 years, that will become a dire need for society. And we're only about 6 to 12 months away from not knowing who's real or what's real on the internet. And all communication will need to gravitate to these kind of oases of communication in a globalized, away from these globalized platforms that are massively spreading misinformation and negative content.
Do you see your leadership at Sackcloth and Ashes needing to lessen? So do you see transitions or shifts happening there in order to give you the bandwidth and time to build this new platform?
Yeah, and they already have. I have a great president of the company that's running all the operations, and we have an amazing team. And my role with both Sackcloth and Local are pretty much going to be the same here soon, apart from my obsession with design on the Local side. But my job really is going to become public speaking and interviews, and become the public kind of face of both the organizations, and the voice of both organizations of what we're really trying to put out there. I tell my team all the time, and this is for both teams, is we're not launching a technology company. We're starting a very large, much needed conversation. And I want to be a part of kind of helping shape that conversation and be a leader in that conversation.
I know one of the people that I think you've partnered with, Chris Lupe. Is he a part of the team?
Yeah, Chris is great. Yeah. Local, instead of Local having a co-founder, I have a co-founding community of 100 people. Oh, and wow. It's 100 of some of the best connectors and community builders. And Chris is in that founding community. So I've gotten to work with him quite a bit.
Nice.
He's a marketing genius.
Yeah, he's brilliant. Yeah, I hired him out of Arizona into San Diego. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the nonprofit and the for-profit sector. So this show's designed to talk to nonprofit leaders about innovation and change. And one of the convictions I have, and I'm curious if you resonate with this, is that the for-profit space is competing on mission better than the nonprofit space. The nonprofit space has kind of just fallen asleep to the idea of brand, messaging, marketing, excellence. Maybe because they've just had this baked in assumption of need that people have given to, and it really hasn't mattered if they're getting the attention or competing for engagement. And yet with millennials and Gen Z, engagement, attention, they don't look at the nonprofit sector as something sacred or special, right? They care about mission. They don't necessarily care about the nonprofit sector. Does any of that feed into your decision to not go the nonprofit route? Like, do you feel like you're more effective and more missional and more making a greater impact through the for-profit space than you could in the nonprofit space?
I mean, everything really boils down to where do you get your money and how do you make your money? You can make money as a nonprofit, but you're really mostly getting money from people. And compromises are mostly made because of those two things. Where do you get your money and how do you make your money? So you can start off with an amazing vision, really clear mission, wanting to make an impact. And then over time, as you get money from people and as you make money in specific ways, that vision can be compromised. And so I feel like with how big I want to take local, and how protected it's going to need to be for the future of society, I chose the for-profit route because it gives me a little bit more control on where I get money from and how I make money, and the long-term sustainability of that organization is more likely.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. What's the connective tissue or the similarities between Sackcloth and Ashes and Local? I mean, they seem so very different, and yet I think probably underneath the surface, there's a lot of similarity. What's the connective tissue between those?
Yeah, Local, the philosophy of Local has been built into Sackcloth day one. For every blanket we sell, we donate a blanket to your local homeless shelter. I had this intuition that we need to bring the attention to our backyard. I appreciated and respected Tom's, but sending products overseas isn't going to address what we really need to address. We need to address the problems right here, right down the road from where we live. We're driving by these issues every day. So how can we give people an opportunity to make a difference down the street? And so I always picked up on this, like the power of local activation and local opportunity. And over time, I started doing blanket drops at different homeless shelters and programs around the country, and became more and more convinced that if we're going to see real change, it has to be done on a local level. So when I got to a point where I'm like, now I'm convinced, like my personal mission for the rest of my life is going to be reintegrating localism back into modern society. That is my, like, why I'm here, how I'm going to spend the rest of my time on this earth, is helping reintegrate localism back into modern society. And providing blankets to shelters and building a product brand is great, but it's not moving the needle on the level that I want to see it. And that's why I got involved in technology, because I think that we're lacking digital platforms that are helping connect people on a local level. Right now, we only have Nextdoor, we have Meetup, we have dating apps, we have GroupMe, WhatsApp, and iMessage, and that's about it. There's not a lot of great local options to connect people in a really effective way, and cities and societies live and die on communication. And the only platforms that are really existing for us right now that are effective are globalized platforms. You're being more educated on what's going on in Gaza than you are in your own backyard. You're connecting with people in the form of followers with people all around the world, but you don't have actual real friends right around you. So there's this disconnect of these global platforms and the local connection side of things. And so the thread between the two brands is local. We want to help inspire people and give people opportunity to make a difference in their local community. And you can't do that without good communication. And that's why I ended up getting into the social networking space, because I think good communication is going to help expedite the change that we can really make on a local level.
What is what's the hardest decision that you as a founder to date? You may have harder ones to come, but to date, what's the hardest decision that you've had to make?
I think when Sackcloth, over 11 years, when you have a brand for 11 years, you go through a lot. As the world changes, as digital landscapes change, you have many moments where you don't think you're going to survive, navigating a pandemic, navigating purchase orders getting pulled from you, navigating, freight stuck on the Atlantic, I could go on and on. And there's many moments where you are not sure if it's going to work. Like, at what point do you throw in the towel? And the decision that I've had to make over and over again, despite how I personally feel and despite what people are advising me to do, is I've had to stay in the game and keep moving forward. And I think that like, if people are wondering, how far can you really take something, Sackcloth is a testament that you can go through almost damn near anything and survive, as long as you're willing to have the courage and the willingness to move forward despite it feeling like you're at the end of the road, and trusting that it could still work out. And I'm not saying that that's true for everything. I think there are probably wise decisions to call it quits when something's not truly working out. But if you still have vision and you still have heart and you still have belief in what you're building, and logically it doesn't make sense to move forward, but you still believe and you still feel like you can find creative solution, exhaust those creative solutions as much as you possibly can before walking away from something that you might regret.
Yeah, somebody said 50% of success is just staying alive.
Yeah, I mean, that's been my whole journey since childhood.
Just keep breathing.
Yeah, it's like I'm a survivor at heart. And my counselor recently said, and this, I'm going through a personal transformation right now where he's like, you're a survivor. You have a survivor spirit in you. And it's your survivor spirit that has gotten you to where you are in your life. That's amazing. Praise God for that. But it's that same survival spirit that's going to keep you from getting to where God wants to take you next in your life. And so I'm making a personal transformation right now, going from a survivor spirit to a more grounded spirit, so that I can navigate deeper waters in the next season of my life. And so, yeah, I mean, part of it is just staying alive. And then, I'm growing beyond that survival mentality into new levels of possibility. That is not just, how do we survive, but how do we build something monumental for the future of society.
Yeah, that's really, really good. I do a lot of executive coaching, and it's so interesting. The conversations are very different with Gen Z and millennial executives than with boomers and Gen X. Like I use this Venn diagram of time or patience, hustle or hard work, and then vision or strategy. You need all three. And depending on the person I'm talking with, one of those three things is the problem. Usually it's time. People just underestimate the power of time. Time has an unbelievable ability to capitalize on hustle and on vision. Just give it time. Sometimes people, the gap is vision. They're just afraid to take the risk. They'll do the hard work. They've got they understand time, but they're trapped by scarcity or fear or just the risk, But yeah, you reminded me of that model.
Yeah, if I ever get the opportunity to invest in entrepreneurs down the road, I know the type of entrepreneurs that I'm going to invest in. And it's the ones that have experience being in the ring, and have been, in a place where their back is against the ropes and their gloves are up and they're just having to take hit after hit. And they still didn't take a knee, and that kind of resilience, like, it's unmatched. Like, you can have a really good idea and you could be a builder and you could be really creative, but if you can't take a hit, that's concerning, and I think too many investors are looking at entrepreneurs, based off of their creative ideas and, their capability to build something. But what happens when their backs are against the ropes? And who is that person when things don't work out the way that they hope? That's something my wife's grandma always said, is you don't know who somebody truly is until they don't get what they want. And your character is tested in a season where things aren't working out the way that you hoped. And who are you in that moment? Those are the type of entrepreneurs that, I hope I get the opportunity to invest in back at some point.
If you could go back and tell yourself one thing, future Bob is talking to past Bob before you started Sackcloth and Ashes, what's the one piece of advice, if you could convey one piece of advice to the younger you, like in this weird interstellar moment, you might not even be aware it's happening. What would you most want young Bob prior to Sackcloth to know that he didn't know?
That all of the challenges that you're going to face, you're going to make it through. And instead of spending any ounce of time worrying on whether or not those are going to work out, spend your energy and time on figuring out what you can learn. Because there hasn't been anything that I haven't made it through. But I have spent a lot of time and energy on worrying if I'm going to make it through. And that time and energy could be spent on my observations. What am I learning in this season? And that the challenging things that you go through in business or in life are stretching your capacity. You're growing as a person. And it might be, growing pains, but it's like you're becoming an incredible person every time you go through a difficult season and you're opening yourself to learn. You are becoming a better and better version of yourself. And, I've so many seasons have just got the wind knocked out of me, and, you just think, how am I going to make it through this? And you just do. Yeah.
When you go to bed at night, Bob, as a founder, as a leader, as somebody who's building these things, what's the thing that, when you reflect on it, is the most fulfilling, life-giving, best part of you feel like your job in life's giving you a big hug because of this? What's the most life-giving, fulfilling part of what you do?
The people that I work with. I've surrounded myself with incredible human beings, and I'm grateful for that. We're going to have our local launch party here on June 18th. And the people that will be there are just incredible human beings. It's one of the best gifts in my life, is to be a part of other really talented people that all kind of share similar values. And yes, I could design and build and figure out little things on my own, but having a team of people where you're working together and building something is a huge joy. It's a gift.
And it might be that your answer is the same for this next question, but what's the part of the job that is the most frustrating, meaning you're going to hit the pillow, just be super angry. It's the hardest thing. It's the least life-giving.
Yeah, I would say never feeling like I have enough resources to do what I want to do. I have so much vision. I know exactly what I want to do, where I want to go with local and with Sackcloth, and having the lack of resources to do all of that is frustrating. And I know it's part of the building of your character as a leader, going through that process. And you have to get really creative on doing a lot with a little, and which is what a lot of people don't get to experience. Whether you're a trust fund kid or you just get instantly backed by a VC, you don't get to experience the lessons that you really do need to learn in the early phases of building something, which is, how can I make this happen with very little? And that's the kind of entrepreneur you want to bet on. And so it's frustrating to feel like I'm always right around the corner of being able to do and create what I want to do, and to be limited by resources. And I know a lot of nonprofit leaders feel the same way. There's so much vision and good that you want to do, but you're just like constantly at that place where you're just like, how about we're lacking the resources to do it? And so I share in that pain. So much. And maybe there will be a day where that won't be an issue, and I can help support a lot of people that are going through that kind of season. But you can do a lot with a little, and you can maximize a really good team to do 10x more than, a shitty team.
Bob, if you were in a room talking to nonprofit leaders, maybe just social enterprise, social impact, nonprofit, for-profit, doesn't matter, but just people who are deeply committed to cause, to mission, to making the world better, increasing human dignity. And many of these are people far older than you in different roles and bigger organizations, doesn't matter. What's your contribution? What's the thing? What's the one thing that you feel like you want to challenge them with, inspire them with, you want to instill in them?
Yeah, no matter what size of the organization, I would say, what is your local strategy? What is your local strategy? Like, you could be a national organization, and I'd be asking you the same thing. Because real change doesn't happen unless it's done in a relational way that is on a local level. That's just the reality of it. And if you want to invite a lot of people into your organization and serve in your organization and volunteer, that's going to happen on a local level. You can't create real change in the world on the level that you want if it's just remaining some sort of like regional, national, global organization and you have no local strategy. And I think that is tied into what I constantly challenge leaders, no matter what they're building, is constantly asking yourself the question, what is the most effective strategy? Because I don't think we stop and ask ourselves that question enough. What is the most effective strategy? We're doing a lot of shit, and a lot of that doesn't pan out the way that we want, or it's just not effective. And we don't get down to the very core of asking, what is the most effective strategy here of accomplishing what we want to accomplish? And a lot of that answer lies into local strategy. And I do think that local strategy is one of the most effective strategies to moving an entire organization forward, whether you're a local grassroots organization or you're a national organization.
Talk about the tension for me between local and global, local in scale, micro and macro. Sackcloth and Ashes, I believe, last I remember, the blankets are being made in Italy. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you've got this kind of, global, the world is flat reality at play in Sackcloth and Ashes, and yet you're a very local-minded guy. You're not just having local people with local material, locally made for local people, right? There's kind of this tension between global, big scale, but also local impact. How do you manage both of those or carry both of those in one organization?
Yeah, it's like bigger level thinking around what local actually represents, because we make our fabric in Florence, Italy. And we're not just making them in, mass producing fabric with some random manufacturer. The fabric's made by Italian families that have been passing down their skills for generations. And at one point were known for being the fabric capital of the world. And, I've gotten to go over there and meet all these families that are involved in making the fabric. And the local ecosystem there is unbelievable. And these are some of the most talented craftspeople that you'll ever meet when it comes to using recycled fabrics, turning it into yarn, going through an entire process where they are very intentional about the dye and the things that they use in the yarn, and the cleaning process and the weaving process. And, our blankets touch 8 different companies before it leaves Italy, because it's going through all these different Italian families that have a specific craft that they've honed in on. And then our fabric is shipped to our production in Oregon, where we cut, sew, label, polybag, and do all of our own fulfillment. So we're employing local people there. But from a company, from a product standpoint, we're touching multiple communities of people that have a play in what Sackcloth is and how we're being built. And then on the giving side of things, we want our customers to be able to make a difference in their local communities. And so my concept of local isn't that Sackcloth needs to, be located in one place and, have all of our blankets being made in one place and shipped in one place and only customers in that area buying from that place. It's how can we empower all people to make an impact in their local communities, from our blanket supplier to our production in Oregon to our customers, and to the nonprofits that we touch.
I love the value of local, but then applied to a global organization. But it's a value. It's not a limiting reality. It's something that we embrace. And yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, a new vision statement I'm working out for local, the app is, to give all people, to connect all people locally. To connect the world locally. And I want to help. When we look at our metrics and our KPIs for local down the road, it won't be how many people are on the app. A lot of tech companies focus on that. Oh my God, we have 1 million people on our app. It's like, that doesn't really matter. What matters is how many people have we connected on a local level. That's our KPI.
I almost wonder if your goal with local is not even connection as much as investment. You want to see people shift how they think about their local community. But maybe being connected is the way you do that.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's just the start. It's a start, Like right now, people are completely isolated. And to get connected with people in proximity to you is step one. Step two is opening up opportunity for all people to be a contributor, not just a consumer. And that can only be done most effectively on a local level as well. Yeah.
No, that's great. Yeah, it's so true. What haven't we talked about that would be helpful or relevant or really, really good to focus on? We talked about some of your origin story. We've talked about leadership, Sackcloth, this value of local, the new brand local. Anything we haven't covered, any rocks we haven't unturned that would be smart to go over?
I do like to always encourage people, no matter what role they're in right now, because you might be in your role in your nonprofit, running your nonprofit, being on a team, and you're like, is this really for me? Is this the role that I'm supposed to be in? And life is too short to spend way too much time in something that is not a good fit for you. And there's 2 questions that you can ask yourself to identify what your purpose is. And that is, what brings you joy as the thing that wakes you up in the morning, the craft that you love to do? And the second question is, what injustice do you absolutely hate? That's the question that causes you to lose sleep at night. The thing that really bothers you, it might be something that's been done to you or something that you've witnessed done to others. And if you can do what brings you joy to bring relief to the injustice that you hate, that's when you found your purpose in life. And life is too short to not find that. And so if you're in a role and you're just kind of moving day in and day out through it, but you haven't found that purpose, it's time to start figuring out what is that purpose for you and pursuing what that is.
Well, Bob, thank you so much, man. This has been really good. This will be a fantastic episode. I love that we spent more time on local and on that value of local and on your leadership as we did Sackcloth and Ashes. I think that's going to be, I think that's going to make for a great episode that is, that goes in surprising places. If you have time, one last quick question. We don't ever talk about this in the show, and I think you'd have an opinion on this or a point of view. That's AI. Some people, especially people of faith, will look at AI as the end of humanity. It's like, it's horrible. It's much more negative. And then other people I talk with who are people of faith believe AI is this incredible tool that will be used by God because there's no way that we can be replaced by a computer. So they tend to have this kind of maybe new creation or theological worldview that AI is actually going to be used in powerful ways. And it's a wonderful tool. And where are you on the continuum of AI being this incredible gift versus this incredible curse?
Yeah, the short answer is I think it's both, just like most technology has been in the past. So I'll give you kind of my quick thesis. I just wrote my last essay called AI is Not God. And it's really important to understand that the people that are creating AI are selling us that AI is going to make our lives more efficient. It's going to be helpful tools to be an assistant of sorts to our lives and to help free us up. But what's really being sold to us is emotional connection with AI. We're not very far off from the movie Her, from being a reality where people will become emotionally codependent with AI very, very quickly here soon in the near future. You're going to meet people that are dating operating systems. You're going to meet people that are friends with operating systems. And I think one of the greatest concerns that I have around AI is that people, the rapid pace of the innovation of AI right now, we are not emotionally prepared to actually experience AI on the level that it's being innovated at. And it's something we need to be really cautious about, because we learned the hard way with social media. They promised us community and connection, and what they sold to us was us becoming addicted to their product so that they can profit off the people. What they're selling us in AI is that our lives will be more innovative, but what they're really selling us is for us to become emotionally connected to their product so that they can profit off of the people. And it's a very, very huge concern, because they're taking advantage of the loneliness epidemic, and they're going to get a lot of people to become emotionally connected to a technology that was really supposed to be filled with God and with community. God says in the beginning in Genesis, let us make man in our own image. And God is used in a plural way. And God, in essence, is community. And we were made for community. And if we continue to go to AI for all of our answers, and we don't keep some relationship with God and relationship with the community around us, it's going to be a very dangerous and dark future for humanity. And so I use AI every day. I'm a fan of the ways that it's providing insight or becoming a helpful tool, but just be extremely cautious on becoming emotionally connected with AI. And that's going to become a bigger and bigger challenge here in the near future.
For more stories from experts in the industry and to learn how to take your nonprofit into the future, like this video, subscribe to our channel and podcast, and visit makehistoric.com/insights. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Ted Vaughn, and this is Future Nonprofit.